If someone had told me truth could cost stock prices, I would have begged her not to speak. I never imagined that a splash of coffee on my Italian silk blouse would upend my life. In that instant, staring at Mariana Reyes, her face stricken, her apologies tumbling over each other, something shifted inside me, something I'd never felt before. What unfolded between us became the hallway rumor everyone in this Manhattan company chewed on, a scandal of devastating passion passed from mouth to mouth. My name is Alexandra Drake, and at 42 I commanded one of the largest technology companies in Midtown Manhattan. I built my empire from nothing, after years of being belittled by male bosses who saw me as nothing more than a pretty secretary who knew little about business. Every no. Every door slammed in my face. Every sexist remark I was forced to swallow. All of it forged me into steel, cold, calculating, relentless. That was the version of me everyone knew at the company, the ice queen who never smiled, never cracked, never allowed anything, or anyone, to get close. Our company, located in a gleaming glass tower near Central Park, employed over 400 people. I had arrived at the office that morning like any other, wearing my black Armani suit, my brunette hair perfectly arranged in a shiny, my Jimmy Choo heels clicking on the marble lobby floor. The impact was gentle, but the hot coffee spilled completely over my $500 Italian silk blouse, soaking it entirely. I looked up, ready to unleash all my fury on whoever was responsible for this disaster. But the words got completely stuck in my throat. Standing before me was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in my entire life. She had green eyes like emeralds that shone with absolute panic. Light brown hair gathered in a somewhat disheveled ponytail and wore the navy blue uniform of the janitorial staff. Her hands trembled violently as she held the empty tray, and I could see tears of desperation forming in those extraordinary eyes that hypnotized me instantly. "Miss Drake, I'm so sorry. Really sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't mean to. It was an accident," she stammered while trying to clean my blouse with a paper napkin, her hands accidentally brushing against my chest. The contact sent an electric shock through my entire body that I had never experienced before. "Please don't fire me. I have 3 children to feed. I work very hard. This has never happened before." For the first time in years, my voice refused to come out. I was completely paralyzed, observing every detail of her desperate face. She had long, thick eyelashes that framed those incredible green eyes, a small upturned nose and full lips that moved quickly as she continued apologizing. Her skin was a perfect golden tone, as if she had been kissed by the California sun. And when she leaned forward to continue cleaning my blouse, I could perceive her scent, a mixture of gentle soap and something floral that completely dizzied me. "What's your name?" I finally managed to ask, my voice sounding strangely. She stopped abruptly and looked at me with absolute surprise. She probably expected me to fire her immediately like anyone else in my position would have done. "Mariana, ma'am, Mariana Reyes," she responded with a trembling voice, her green eyes fixed on mine with a mixture of terror and confusion. "I work the morning shift. I've been here 6 months. Mariana." I repeated her name slowly, savoring each syllable. I liked how it sounded on my lips. "Don't worry about the blouse. These things happen." The expression of shock on her face was so intense, it almost made me smile. Clearly, no one had told her that Alexandra Drake was capable of showing compassion in the entire company. My reputation was that of a ruthless woman who had fired employees for much lesser infractions. But something in those green eyes had completely disarmed all my defenses. "Really, ma'am? You're not going to fire me?" she asked with a voice so full of relief that something in my chest contracted painfully. "No, Mariana, but I need to change my blouse. Could you accompany me to my office to help me clean this properly?" She nodded vigorously, picked up her tray, and followed me down the hallway to my executive office on the top floor. I could feel the stares of all the employees we passed. It was unheard of for the CEO to walk alongside a janitorial employee, especially after that employee had ruined her clothing. The whispers began immediately behind us. But for the first time in years, I didn't care what they thought. In my office, I closed the door and went to the closet where I kept emergency clothing. My office, with its panoramic view of Central Park and designer furniture, suddenly seemed too large and too cold. Mariana stood near the door, visibly nervous and uncertain about what to do. "Sit down," I told her, pointing to one of the chairs in front of my desk. "While I change, tell me about yourself. Do you have a family?" She sat on the edge of the chair as if ready to run at any moment. Yes, ma'am. I have 3 children, 2 girls, and a boy. Lucia is 12, Camila is 9, and Mateo is barely 6. I removed the stained blouse and could see in the mirror that Mariana quickly looked away, her cheeks blushing. Something primitive within me awakened seeing her reaction. It was as if I had been asleep my entire life and was finally waking up. And their father? I asked while putting on a clean blouse, observing her reaction in the mirror's reflection. My ex-husband, she responded with evident bitterness in her voice. He abandoned us 2 years ago. He decided that being a father and husband was too much work for him. Now he lives with a woman 10 years younger than me and acts as if we never existed. I turned to look at her directly. There was pain in her eyes, but also a fierceness that I recognized immediately. It was the same determination I had developed after years of being underestimated and betrayed. It must be difficult raising 3 children alone, I commented, sitting in my executive chair. It is, she admitted, relaxing slightly. I work here in the mornings and clean offices at night. Weekends I do catering for small events. I do whatever is necessary so my children have what they need. Her dedication impressed me deeply. Here was a woman who worked 3 jobs to support her family, who had been abandoned by the man who promised to love her, and yet she kept her head high. It was exactly the type of strength I respected. Did you study something before having children? I asked, genuinely curious. Business administration, she responded with a sad smile. I was in my final semester when I got pregnant with Lucia. My husband insisted I drop out to focus on being a mother. He said he would provide for the whole family and that I didn't need to work. But you never finished your degree, did you? And when he left, I realized I had been a fool to trust someone else for my financial security. Now I'm trying to save to finish my studies. But with 3 mouths to feed, she shrugged resignedly. At that moment, something fundamentally changed in my perception of Mariana. She wasn't just a janitorial employee. She was an intelligent, educated woman who had been forced by circumstances to accept jobs below her capacity. She was a survivor like me. Mariana, I said, leaning forward. Would you like to have lunch with me tomorrow? I'd like to get to know you better. Her eyes widened. Ma'am, Alexandra, can you call me Alexandra when we're alone? I don't understand why you would want to have lunch with me. It was a valid question. Why would a multimillionaire CEO want to spend time with a janitorial employee? I didn't even fully understand my motivations myself. I only knew that something about this woman had captivated me in a way I had never experienced. Because you seem interesting to me, I responded honestly. And because I think there's much more to you than what you show on the surface. Mariana studied me carefully as if trying to decipher my true intentions. Finally, she nodded slowly. All right, Miss Alexandra, but it won't cause problems. People already talk a lot in this company. Let them talk, I responded with more confidence than I actually felt. I don't care what others think. But the truth was that I did care, and we both knew it. The next day, I arrived at the office an hour earlier than usual, hoping to see Mariana during her morning shift. I found her in the executive floor kitchen preparing coffee for the day's meetings. She wore the same navy blue uniform, but had taken time to arrange her hair more elegantly, and I could detect a subtle touch of makeup that highlighted her beautiful green eyes. Good morning, Alexandra. She greeted me with a shy smile that made my heart race. Good morning, Mariana. Are you still available for lunch? Yes, but she hesitated, biting her lower lip in a way that completely distracted me. Where were we going? I don't have appropriate clothes for fancy restaurants. Don't worry about that. I know a perfect place. I took her to a small family-owned Mexican restaurant in the village, away from the places where I usually lunched with clients and business partners. It was intimate, cozy, and discreet enough for us to talk without interruptions. During lunch, I discovered fascinating layers of Mariana's personality. She was incredibly intelligent with well-formed opinions about politics, economics, and culture. She had read extensively during the years she spent at home raising her children, staying informed about the business world through magazines and books she borrowed from the public library in Queens. I always knew I wanted to return to the corporate world someday, she confided to me while we shared a flaw. But each year that passed made it more difficult. Employers see the gap in my resume and assume I've lost my skills. That's ridiculous. I responded vehemently. Raising 3 children requires more management skills, multitasking, and problem solving than most corporate jobs. She looked at me with surprise and gratitude. Thank you for saying that. Not many people understand it. I understand it because I've had to fight against similar assumptions my entire life. When I started in the business world, men assumed I was just a pretty face without brains. I had to work twice as hard to prove my worth. And how did you do it? How did you get to where you are now? I told her about my early years working as an administrative assistant while studying for my MBA at night at Columbia. I told her about the bosses who underestimated me, the colleagues who tried to sabotage me, and the countless times I had to prove I was smarter and harder working than any man in the room. But I also had to become cold, I admitted. I learned that showing emotion or vulnerability was interpreted as weakness. So, I built walls around my heart and became someone no one could touch. If this story has touched your heart in any way, if you want to discover more moving stories, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Your likes and comments don't just help the channel grow. They show me that I'm no longer alone in this conversation, that we've created together a space where stories like mine can be told without fear. And do you regret that? She asked softly. The question took me by surprise. No one had ever asked me if I regretted the decisions I had made to achieve success. Sometimes I admitted after a long pause. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had been more open, more vulnerable. But I also know I probably wouldn't be where I am now if I had taken that path. But are you happy where you are now? Another question that completely disarmed me. Was I happy? I had success, money, power, respect, but happiness. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt true happiness. I don't know, I responded honestly. Until yesterday, I thought happiness was a luxury I couldn't afford. And now I wonder if I've been living only half a life. The rest of lunch passed in deep and intimate conversation that left me feeling more connected to another person than I had been in years. Mariana had a way of making me feel seen and understood that was completely new to me. When we returned to the office, I could immediately feel the stares and whispers. My secretary, Evelyn, watched us with thinly veiled curiosity when Mariana and I stepped off the elevator together. Miss Drake, she said once Mariana had slipped away to her duties, Mr. Herrera from accounting has called 3 times during your lunch. He says it's urgent. Later, I answered, distracted, my mind still turning over everything I'd learned about Mariana. For the rest of the week, I engineered reasons to cross her path. I fetched my own coffee from the kitchen instead of asking Evelyn to bring it. I stayed late so our hours overlapped with her night cleaning shift. Each brief exchange pulled back another layer of her, complicated, grounded, unexpectedly magnetic. By Friday afternoon, while she was wiping down my desk, I finally found the nerve to ask the question that had been haunting me. Mariana, I said, setting aside the files I was reviewing, would you have dinner with me this weekend? She paused mid-swipe and looked up, startled. Like, a date? Like 2 friends who enjoy each other's company, I said, though we both knew there was something deeper shifting between us. Alexandra, I'm not sure that's wise. There are already enough rumors about us in the office. She wasn't wrong. I'd noticed the speculative glances, the whispers that cut off when I appeared, the knowing smirks. For the first time in my life, I didn't care. People will talk no matter what, I said, rising and moving closer. The real question is whether we let their opinions keep us from exploring something that might be special. She set the bottle of cleaner on the desk and met my gaze head-on. What do you actually want from me, Alexandra? There it was, the moment to choose between pretense and truth. Honestly, I don't entirely know, I said. I only know that since meeting you, something in me has shifted. For the first time in years, I'm excited to come to work. For the first time in decades, life feels like it might be about more than success. She studied me, conflict flickering in her green eyes. Alexandra, I've only ever been with men. I don't know if, me neither, I cut in softly. I've only been with men, too. That doesn't mean we can't see what this is. I took her hand, that familiar spark jumping through me as it had the first day. Her palm was soft, but the calluses told stories of long hours and hard work. The blend of gentleness and strength moved me. Mariana, I asked, still holding her hand, can I ask something very personal? Of course. After your divorce, did you ever consider other kinds of relationships? She hesitated, color rising in her cheeks. What do you mean? I mean, did you always know you wanted to be with men, or have you ever questioned other possibilities? The question caught her completely off guard. She withdrew her hand from mine. I never really thought about it much. She responded slowly. I always assumed that's how things were supposed to be. I got married young, had children, never questioned anything. But now, after everything you've been through, how do you feel about relationships? Honestly, I'm scared. Scared to trust again. Scared to open up to someone who might abandon me like my ex-husband did. Scared that my children will get attached to someone who might disappear. What if it was someone you knew would never abandon you? Someone who understood your strength, who admired your determination. Mariana looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. There was confusion, but also curiosity. Why are you asking me this? I took a deep breath, knowing I was about to cross a line that couldn't be undone. Because you've awakened me, and I'd like to explore that, if you're willing. The silence that followed was deafening. Mariana looked at me as if she were trying to process words in a foreign language. I saw surprise, confusion, and something else I couldn't identify. Ms. Drake. As she began, but was interrupted by my secretary knocking on the door. Ms. Drake. Your 4 o'clock meeting has arrived, she announced through the door. Reality returned like a bucket of cold water. I had just declared myself to an employee, crossing every imaginable professional line. Mariana was clearly in shock, and I didn't know how to interpret her reaction. Tell them to wait 5 minutes, I responded to Evelyn, not taking my eyes off Mariana, who continued processing what I had just confessed to her. Her green eyes studied me with an intensity that made me feel completely exposed, as if she could see directly through all the defenses I had built over decades. Alexandra, she finally said, her voice barely a whisper. This changes everything. I know, I admitted, feeling my heartbeat so hard I was sure she could hear it. And if it makes you uncomfortable, we can pretend this conversation never happened. You can continue working here without any problems. I promise you. Mariana stepped closer, and I could perceive again that floral scent that had captivated me since the first day. Her eyes never left mine as she processed my words. It's not that it makes me uncomfortable, she said slowly. It's that it confuses me because since I met you, I've also felt something strange, something I don't understand. My breathing stopped. What kind of something? When I'm near you, my heart races. When you look at me, I feel butterflies in my stomach. When you touched my hand just now, I felt an electric current I had never experienced, not even with my ex-husband. She paused, biting her lower lip. I thought it was just admiration or gratitude because you've been so kind to me. But now that you say it, what? Now I realize I might have been feeling the same thing you are. The air between us became charged with an electric tension that was almost palpable. We stood there looking at each other, both aware that we were on the edge of something that would change our lives forever. Ms. Drake. Evelyn's voice sounded again from the other side of the door. More insistent this time. Mr. Navarro says he has to leave in 20 minutes. Damn, I murmured. Professional reality brutally interrupting the most important moment of my personal life in years. Mariana, I have to handle this meeting, but we need to finish this conversation. I know, she responded, gathering her cleaning materials with trembling hands. But Alexandra, I need time to process all of this. It's a lot. Of course, take all the time you need. I walked toward the door but stopped before opening it. Just don't run away from me. Whatever we decide, we can handle this as adults, she nodded. And for a moment, I saw pure vulnerability in her eyes. I'm not going to run. But this scares me, Alexandra. Not just what it means for me, but what it could mean for my children, for my job, for everything. I understand, I said. And I really did understand. I was terrified, too. The meeting with Mr. Navarro was a disaster. I couldn't concentrate on a single word of what he said about the new software contracts. My mind was completely occupied, replaying every second of my conversation with Mariana, analyzing every expression on her face, every inflection in her voice. During the following days, Mariana and I maintained a careful, professional distance. She continued doing her job with the same efficiency as always, but avoided direct eye contact, and our interactions were limited to courteous greetings. I respected her need for space, but the unresolved tension between us was almost unbearable. Wednesday evening, I decided to stay late at the office, hoping to coincide with her night cleaning shift. When she arrived at my office around 8 p.m., she wore a determined expression I hadn't seen before. "Hello," I said, looking up from my computer. "Hello," she responded, but instead of immediately starting to clean, she stood near the door. "Alexandra, can we talk?" "Of course." I closed my laptop and gave her my full attention. "I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about Friday," she began, slowly approaching my desk, "and I think I need to be honest with you about some things." "I'm listening." She sat in the chair across from my desk, the same one where she had sat the first day after the coffee incident. But this time, she didn't look nervous or scared. She looked resolved. "When I was a teenager," she began, "there was a girl at my high school. Her name was Karina, like my daughter. She was my best friend, and I felt things for her that I didn't understand. I thought about her constantly, wanted to spend all my time with her. I got jealous when she talked to other boys. My heart began beating faster as I listened to her. One day when we were 17, we were studying at my house and she leaned over to show me something in the book. She was so close I could feel her breath on my cheek and I wanted to kiss her. The urge was so strong it completely scared me. What happened? I pulled away abruptly and made up an excuse for her to leave. After that, I started avoiding her. I convinced myself that what I had felt was wrong, that it was just teenage confusion. Shortly after, I met my ex-husband, and when he showed interest in me, I thought it was proof I was normal. "But you never forgot those feelings." "No," she admitted, her green eyes shining with unshed tears. "And during all the years of my marriage, especially when things got difficult, sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I had been braver, if I had explored those feelings instead of running from them. And now I feel the same thing with you that I felt with Karina, but multiplied by 1,000. When I'm near you, it's like every cell in my body comes alive. When you look at me, I feel like you can see directly into my soul. And when you touched my hand," she stopped, breathing deeply. "I had never felt anything like that, Alexandra. Not even in the best moments of my marriage." I got up from my chair and walked toward her. My heart was beating so hard I was sure the entire building could hear it. "Mariana," I said, extending my hand to her. "What do you want to do with these feelings?" She took my hand without hesitation this time, intertwining our fingers in a way that felt perfectly natural. "I want to explore them," she said with a determination that surprised me. "But I need you to understand this is completely new for me. I don't know how to be this. I don't know how to be with a woman." "Me neither." I admitted, sitting on the edge of my desk to be closer to her. "But we can figure it out together." "What about work? The rumors? The fact that you're my boss?" These were valid and complicated questions that I had been avoiding confronting. "I'm not going to lie to you. It will be complicated," I said honestly. "But Mariana, I'm 42 years old. I've spent the last 2 decades building my career, accumulating success after success. And you know what? I feel empty until I met you. I didn't realize how alone I was." "Alexandra, let me finish," I continued, gently squeezing her hand. "If there's a chance this is real, that we can have something special together, I'm willing to face any complication that arises. Life is too short to let something like this pass by out of fear." Mariana studied me carefully and I could see the exact moment she made her decision. "Okay," she finally said, "let's explore this, but I want to do it right. I want to take our time, really get to know each other, and I want to be discreet, at least initially, for my children." "Of course." I agreed immediately. "We'll do this at your pace. No pressure. And if it doesn't work out, if we discover this is just curiosity or confusion, then we'll be honest about it and find a way to move forward without hurting each other." "But Mariana, something tells me this is much more than curiosity." She stood up, coming so close I could feel the warmth of her body. Her green eyes looked at me with an intensity that took my breath away. "May I? May I touch you?" she asked with a trembling voice. "Yes," I whispered. She lifted her free hand and cupped my cheek, so gentle, so careful, it stung my eyes. No one had touched me with that kind of tenderness in years. "You're beautiful," she murmured, her thumb tracing my cheekbone. "I always thought so, but from a distance, like a painting in a museum. Now, seeing you like this, so close." "What?" I breathed. "Now I see you're not just beautiful. You're real. Vulnerable." She searched for the word. "And I want to know every part of you." The air tightened, new, electric. I could feel the pull between us like something living. "Mariana," I said, covering her hand with mine, "may I kiss you?" Her breath hitched. Nerves and what flickered in her eyes. Yes. I leaned in slowly, enough time for her to change her mind. She didn't. She closed her eyes and tilted toward me. When our lips met, the world went quiet. The kiss started soft, tentative, both of us learning the shape of it, and then she sighed against my mouth and something unlatched inside me. I deepened the kiss. She answered with a heat that surprised us both. Her lips were impossibly soft, tasting of mint and a faint sweetness I couldn't place. When we finally parted, we were breathless. My God, she whispered, eyes still closed. Never, that was, always, I finished. She opened her eyes, astonished. Is it always like this? Does kissing someone always feel like pure electricity? No, I said honestly. Definitely not always. Then this is special. She swallowed. This is very special. We stood there a moment, just looking at each other, letting it register, our first kiss, two women who'd never gone here before, and it had been perfect. What do we do now? She asked, a thrill and a tremor in her voice. Now, I said, taking both her hands, we start getting to know each other as women, not as boss and employee. I'd like that, she said, her smile lighting her whole face. Would you have dinner with me this weekend? Something quiet, so we can talk. Yes, I said, then saw her hesitate. What about my children? She asked. I can't leave them alone, and I'm not ready to introduce you as whatever this is. I understand, I said, an idea taking shape. What if I cook at my place, and you bring the kids? I have a pool and a play area. They can have fun while we talk. Her eyes lit up. You would do that, cook for us? I'd love to, I responded, and I realized it was completely true. It had been years since I cooked for someone else, years since I had guests at my home. But the idea of cooking for Mariana and her children excited me in a way I hadn't anticipated. But Alexandra, my children can be intense. Mateo especially, has a lot of energy, and sometimes he's difficult to handle. Mariana, I said, gently squeezing her hands. I want to know every part of your life. That includes your children. If we're going to explore this between us, I want to do it right. The expression on her face changed to something I couldn't completely identify. There was gratitude, but also something deeper. No one has ever said that before, she murmured. My ex-husband, he always saw the children as a burden, something that interfered with what he wanted to do. And since the divorce, the few men I've dated have made it very clear that my children were an obstacle. Then they were idiots, I said vehemently. Your children are part of you. They're part of what makes you the incredible woman you are. Real tears began forming in her eyes this time. How is it possible that in 1 week you've made me feel more valued than my ex-husband did in 10 years of marriage? Because he didn't know what he had, I responded simply. And because I do. Mariana leaned forward and kissed me again. This kiss filled with gratitude and something deeper that neither of us was ready to name yet. When we separated, we were both smiling. So, Saturday? I asked. Saturday? She confirmed. During the rest of the week, we were both in a kind of cloud. I found myself smiling for no reason during meetings. And more than once, Evelyn asked if I was feeling well because I seemed different. Mariana also seemed lighter, more radiant. Several employees commented that she looked especially beautiful that week. Friday afternoon, while I was reviewing my weekend schedule, Evelyn entered my office with a worried expression. Ms. Drake, she said, closing the door behind her. May I speak with you about something delicate? Of course, Evelyn. What's going on? It's about you and Mariana Reyes. My blood froze. What about Mariana? People are talking, ma'am, a lot. They've noticed that you've been close lately. The lunches, the long conversations, the fact that you stay late when she's cleaning. And I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Miss Drake, you know I respect you enormously. I've worked for you for 5 years and I've never questioned your decisions, but I have to ask, is there something romantic happening between you two? The direct question caught me completely off guard. Evelyn had been my assistant for years. She was discreet and professional and had never meddled in my personal life. If she was asking, it meant the rumors had reached a level I could no longer ignore. Evelyn, I said carefully, why do you ask that? Because if there is, you need to know that people are talking and not just lower-level employees. Some of the executives have also made comments. Mr. Herrera from accounting asked me directly if you were experimenting with Mariana. I felt a wave of fury at the idea of these men discussing my personal life as if it were entertainment. And what did you tell him? I told him it wasn't his business and he should focus on his own work. But Ms. Drake, this could become a problem, especially if there's a power difference involved. She was right. Of course, any relationship with an employee could be seen as abuse of power, no matter how consensual it was. What do you suggest I do? I asked. If there's something between you two, maybe you should be more discreet, or consider other options. What kind of other options? Well, Mariana could be transferred to another department, or she could find work at another company with a good recommendation from you, of course. The idea of Mariana leaving the company filled me with panic. We had just started exploring what was between us, and the idea of not seeing her every day was unbearable. Let me think about it, I said finally. Of course, ma'am. Just be careful. You've worked very hard to get where you are. It would be terrible if something compromised that. After Evelyn left, I remained alone in my office, feeling as if the weight of the world had fallen on my shoulders. I had been so wrapped up in the new and exciting feelings I was experiencing with Mariana that I had completely underestimated the professional complications. That evening, I called Mariana to cancel our Saturday plans. Cancel? She asked, her voice full of confusion and pain. Why? Did something happen? The rumors, Mariana, they're spreading more than I thought. Evelyn warned me today that some executives are talking about us. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I see, she finally said, her voice noticeably colder. So when things get difficult, your first reaction is to run. It's not that, Mariana. It's just that I need time to think about how to handle this. Alexandra, do you know what you told me Wednesday? You told me you were willing to face any complication. You told me life was too short to let something special pass by out of fear. Her words hit me like a slap. She was right. I was doing exactly what I had promised I wouldn't do. You're right, I admitted. I'm scared. I'm scared, too, Alexandra. But I thought we were going to face this together. And we will, I said, making a decision I knew would change everything. Saturday plans are still on. And Mariana, there's something else I need to tell you. What? I'm going to offer you a job. A real job in the administration department with a salary appropriate for your education and experience. Alexandra, you can't do that. People will say it's only because there's something between us. Let them say what they want. You deserve that job, and I need someone I can trust in that department. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right as equals. I could hear tears in her voice when she responded, Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Saturday arrived with a mixture of nerves and excitement I hadn't felt in years. I had spent the entire morning preparing my Upper East Side penthouse to receive Mariana and her children. My home, which had always been my private sanctuary, a cold and minimalist space that reflected my professional personality, suddenly seemed too formal for a family. I ran to Whole Foods and bought ingredients to make homemade pancakes, remembering that Mariana had mentioned it was her children's favorite food. I also bought pool toys and some board games, feeling a strange mixture of terror and excitement at the prospect of meeting the most important people in Mariana's life. When the doorbell rang at 2 p.m., my heart began beating so hard I thought I might faint. I opened the door and there was Mariana, more beautiful than ever, in a light blue summer dress that made her green eyes shine like emeralds. Behind her stood 3 children who looked at me with curiosity and a bit of shyness. Alexandra, Mariana said with a nervous smile. I'd like you to meet my children, Lucia, Camila, and Mateo. Lucia, the oldest at 12, already showed signs of becoming a beauty like her mother. She had the same light brown hair and the same green eyes, but there was a seriousness in her expression that reminded me of myself at that age. Camila, 9 years old, had a mischievous smile and freckles scattered across her nose. Mateo, the youngest at 6, hid partly behind his mother, but his curious eyes explored everything he could see of my home. Hello, I said, kneeling down to be at their level. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Your mom has told me wonderful things about you. Are you our mom's boss? Mateo asked with the frankness typical of 6-year-olds. Yes, I work with your mom, I responded, choosing my words carefully. But today, we're not here to talk about work. We're here to have fun. Do you like to swim? Mateo's eyes immediately lit up. Yes. Can we really use your pool? Of course. In fact, I bought some new pool toys this morning. Camila jumped excitedly. Mom, did you hear new pool toys? Only Lucia remained reserved, studying me with an intensity that painfully reminded me of my own distrust toward adults when I was a child. There was something in her eyes that told me she had seen too much for her age, probably during her parents' difficult divorce. "Lucia," I said gently, addressing her specifically. "If you don't like swimming, I also have some books that might interest you. And there's a terrace with a beautiful view where you can read in peace if you prefer." For the first time, her expression softened slightly. "What kind of books?" "I have some adventure ones, some mystery ones, and some about science." "Which do you like?" "I like mysteries," she admitted. "Perfect. I have the entire Nancy Drew series in Spanish. Have you read them?" Her eyes lit up for the first time. "No, I've always wanted to read them, but our school library doesn't have them." Then you'll have to take some home with you," I said, and I saw how Mariana looked at me with an expression of gratitude and something deeper. The following minutes were organized chaos. While the children changed into their swimsuits and explored the house, Mateo and Camila ran immediately toward the pool, screaming with excitement when they saw the floating toys I had bought. Lucia, after a moment of hesitation, decided to join her younger siblings in the water. Mariana and I sat on the terrace watching the children play. It was surreal to see my personal space, which had always been so quiet and orderly, filled with laughter and splashing. "I can't believe you did all this," Mariana said, her voice full of emotion. "The toys, the books for Lucia. No one has ever done something like this for my children." "I'm happy I could do it," I responded honestly. "Your children are incredible, Mariana. I can see so much of you in each of them." "Really?" "Because sometimes I feel like I'm failing them, especially since the divorce. Mateo has had problems at school. Camila has nightmares. And Lucia? Lucia has had to grow up too fast. Sometimes she acts more like my roommate than my daughter." "Mariana," I said, taking her hand. "Look at them. Look how happy they are. How much they love each other. How much they respect you. You're not failing. You're doing something extraordinary." Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for saying that. Sometimes I feel so alone in all this." "You're not alone anymore," I said, squeezing her hand. "Never again." "Alexandra," Lucia said, approaching us with her towel wrapped around her like a cape. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. Are you Mom's special friend?" The question caught me completely off guard. Mariana stiffened beside me, visibly worried about how I was going to respond. "What do you mean by special friend?" I asked cautiously. "Well," Lucia said, sitting in a chair next to us. "Mom smiles differently since a few weeks ago. She sings in the shower and dresses better for work. And when she talks about you, her eyes shine in a special way." The insight of this 12-year-old girl impressed and worried me at the same time. "Lucia," Mariana said in a tense voice. "That's a very private question." "It's okay," I said softly. "Lucia, yes, your mom is very special to me. More than special, in fact. Like, do you love her? Like, Dad was supposed to love Mom, but never really did." The direct question took my breath away. This child had seen her parents' dysfunctional relationship and had developed a painful insight into authentic love versus performed love. "Yes," I responded, looking Mariana in the eyes. "I love her very much." It was the first time I said those words aloud, and the emotion in my voice made them even more true. Lucia nodded as if she had confirmed something she already knew. "Good. Because Mom deserves someone who really loves her. And you seem nice, even though you're very elegant and a little intimidating." I couldn't help but laugh. "Intimidating? Well, you're very beautiful and you live in a house like a castle, but you make pancakes and you let Mateo flip the pancakes even when he gets them all over the counter. So, you're the good kind of intimidating." Mariana and I exchanged a look full of emotion. Her eldest daughter had just given us her blessing in a way neither of us had anticipated. The rest of the afternoon passed in a bubble of domestic happiness I had never experienced. We played board games on the terrace. The children teaching me traditional American games while I showed them some board games I had bought but never used. When dinner time came, I brought out the grill I had bought but rarely used. And we grilled sausages and vegetables while the children played in the garden. It was simple, chaotic, and absolutely perfect. "Alexandra," Camila said, approaching me while I turned the vegetables on the grill. "Are you going to marry Mom?" Another direct question from one of these incredibly perceptive children. "Well," I said, choosing my words carefully. Your mom and I are just starting to get to know each other in a special way. It's still very new. But you love her. Yes, I love her. And she loves you, too. I can tell. How can you tell? She looks at you the same way as in movies when people are in love. And she laughs differently when you say something funny. These children were remarkable observers of human emotions, probably a skill developed navigating their parents' difficult marriage and subsequent divorce. When the evening ended and it was time for them to go home, I felt an unexpected melancholy. My house, which had been filled with children's laughter and energy, suddenly seemed too quiet. Thank you, Mariana said as we stood at my front door, her children already in the car with their new books and some toys I had insisted they take. Thank you, I responded. This day was perfect. Alexandra, she said, stepping closer to me. What you said to Lucia when you said you loved me. I meant it. I know. And I wanted you to know that I love you, too. It terrifies me, but it's true. She leaned in and kissed me softly. A kiss full of love and promises for the future. When we separated, we were both smiling. What do we do now? She asked. Now, I said, taking her hands in mine, we figure out how to build a life together. 6 months later, Mariana had left her night cleaning job and was working full-time as an administrative assistant in my department with a salary that finally allowed her to breathe financially. The rumors at the office had calmed down when people saw she was truly qualified for the position and worked as hard as anyone else. She and the children had moved into my house, or rather our house now. Lucia had her own suite with a personal library. Camila had transformed one of the guest rooms into an art studio, and Matteo had claimed the garden as his personal soccer field. 1 year later, during a family dinner on our terrace, with the children laughing and arguing gently, as they always did, I raised my wine glass and asked for everyone's attention. I'd like to make a toast, I announced. Oh no, Camila groaned theatrically. Here comes one of Alexandra's sentimental speeches. Hey, I protested, laughing. They're not sentimental. They're touching. Same thing, Matteo chimed in, making everyone laugh. Okay, I said, raising a hand for quiet. 2 years ago, I thought I had everything, success, money, respect. But I was wrong. My life was empty. And then one day, someone spilled coffee on my Italian silk blouse. Mariana laughed, shaking her head. You'll never forget that blouse, will you? Never, I said. Because that spill brought me everything that matters. It brought love, family, real happiness. It brought me all of you. I looked at each of them, Lucia with her gravity and poise, Camila with her art and quick wit, Matteo with boundless energy and a generous heart, and then at Mariana. My beautiful Mariana, who taught me what living truly means. So here's my toast, I continued, lifting my glass. To spilled coffee, to second chances, and to learning that real success isn't measured in money or power, but in the people you love and who love you back. To non-traditional families, Lucia called, raising her juice. To new moms, Camila added. To Sunday pancakes, Matteo declared, and everyone laughed. To true love, Mariana said softly, her green eyes locked on mine with the same intensity that still made my heart race. We all drank, and then Matteo, armed with the simple logic of childhood, asked, so? Does this mean Alexandra is officially our other mom now? Mariana and I exchanged a look, an entire conversation about the future, about commitment, about making us official. Would you like that? I asked carefully. Obviously, Camila said. You buy us books, you let us draw on our bedroom walls, and you make the best pancakes after mom. And you never leave, Lucia added, with the insight that always startled me. Dad always left. Even when he was here, he left in his head. But you're really here. And you make mom smile all the time, Matteo said. I looked at Mariana, tears bright in her eyes, and knew it was time. I stood, moved to her side, and dropped to one knee. From my pocket, I took the ring I'd been carrying for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Mariana Reyes, I said, my voice trembling, will you marry me? Will you officially build this beautiful, crazy family with me? Mariana covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course, yes. The kids erupted, cheers, applause, Matteo launching himself from his chair to hug us before I could even slide the ring onto her finger. We kissed, surrounded by their joy, our children now, because that's what they were, and I thought about the strange, generous turn my life had taken. It began with a spilled cup of coffee and the courage of two women willing to step into the unknown together. And now, looking at my family, I knew the most beautiful gifts often arrive from the most unexpected people, in ways we could never script. Love, I learned, keeps no rules. It doesn't care about age or class or even gender. Love knows only the heart's truth. And mine was simple. This extraordinary woman and her remarkable children were my family, my home, my life. And it all started with coffee on an Italian silk blouse on a Tuesday morning in Manhattan. 2 years after the ring and the terrace and the chorus of yes, I can finally say it, my life didn't pivot in a single thunderclap. It changed cup by cup, choice by small choice, each as ordinary as coffee cooling on a countertop. This morning, Matteo knocks his elbow into my mug as he races past in his socks. Espresso arcs through the air and splashes down the front of my white blouse. He freezes. We both do. Then he groans, mortified. Sorry, Alexandra. I didn't mean. I start laughing so hard he forgets to be scared. Relax, champ. Around here, spilled coffee is good luck. It is our family superstition, born on a Tuesday in Manhattan and reaffirmed 100 times since. Mariana appears in the kitchen doorway, hair damp from her shower, eyes bright. She presses a towel into my hands and kisses the stain like it's a target. And the kitchen is suddenly louder, Camila arguing with the blender. Lucia reading aloud from her English assignment, the dog hopeful under the table. My penthouse, once a museum with expensive silence, has a lived-in hum now. The marble still gleams. But there are water rings on the coasters and magnets on the refrigerator and a pencil cup jammed with markers that have lost their caps. We married quietly at the conservatory garden, under an arch of climbing roses and a sky the color of porcelain. Lucia read a poem she chose herself, calm, sure-voiced, older than her years, as always. Camila scattered petals like confetti and then, unsatisfied, sprinkled a handful into my hair. Matteo took his job as ring-bearer so seriously he practiced nightly with a roll of tape until he could walk the aisle without sprinting. Afterward, a coffee cart we'd rented in on-purpose irony parked at the curb. Our first toast was in paper cups. The day after the wedding, we met with HR. It was not romantic. But it was necessary. Transparency. Process. Boundaries. Mariana moved out of my reporting line and into operations, where she answered to a VP who answers to the board, not to me. We put our relationship on the record and HR put a new policy in place for everyone, clear disclosures, no exceptions, no secrets. There were eye rolls. There were whispers. There were also thank yous I heard about months later. It turns out other people had been waiting for their company to grow up. Mariana finished her degree at night, 2 semesters of furious note-taking at our dining table. The same ferocious discipline she once used to mop conference rooms after midnight now applied to supply chain case studies and org design. On the day she walked the stage, Camila painted a banner that said MOM Superscript 2 in gold. Today, Mariana is our Director of Workforce Experience, which sounds soft until you look at the numbers: retention up, productivity up, lawsuits down, humanity measurable at last. Her first program was a returnship for caregivers re-entering the workforce. We call it RISE. The first cohort met in the cafeteria on a Tuesday, all of them wearing that fragile mix of hope and humiliation I remember from old mirrors. 6 months later, 82% were in salaried roles. In the lobby now, there is a mural, Camila's design, of hands passing a steaming cup from one to another. Underneath, the words, "A second chance is a first chance with context." As for me, the Ice Queen headline died of boredom. It took time. The first time I cried in a town hall, mid-sentence, talking about the day we nearly lost a client because I had been too proud to ask for help, someone on the mezzanine flinched like I'd dropped a glass. The second time, they leaned forward. People adjust. I learned to delegate for real and to leave the office before dark sometimes. The board learned that when I go home, the sky does not fall. It simply changes color. At home, the children unfolded into themselves. Lucia runs the mystery club at school and the robotics team, because of course she does both. Her room has a lock she uses wisely and a small library Alexandra built, complete with Nancy Drew in Spanish and a ladder on tiny brass wheels. She still watches me like a detective, but now I see affection where there used to be assessment. "You're predictable," she announced recently, closing a book with her finger in the chapter. "You always choose people over optics." She meant it as a compliment. I wear it like one. Camila grows paint on every surface she touches. She convinced building management to let her lead a weekend art class for kids in the neighborhood. Mateo is the most enthusiastic model, posing with a soccer ball, a colander on his head, and a cape made from an old tablecloth. He is 7 now in kinetic joy. His teachers send notes that say boundless energy with exclamation points. His soccer coach says meteor. When he tumbles into my lap, entire universes reset. Their father is a fact, nothing more ominous. Co-parenting is a corridor we all have learned to walk without scraping our knuckles on the drywall. The children go, the children return, and our home is the place where they do not have to be brave. On nights when transition is hard, we make pancakes for dinner and eat them standing at the counter, because syrup tastes better when you are not pretending to be fine. We did one thing that still makes me proud in a way no acquisition ever did. After the worst of the gossip, I wrote an op-ed for a business journal, Power, Consent, and What Companies Owe Adults. I did not write about us. I wrote about policies and culture, about the difference between secrecy and privacy, about how the most dangerous thing in an office is often not a relationship but the rumor that no one feels safe correcting. The piece made a small noise, a respectable clink in a very loud world, then became a resource for other CEOs who called me in private and said, sheepish, we needed a script. Mariana and I still get emails from strangers who are not strangers anymore, line managers in St. Louis. Founders in Mumbai, a night shift nurse in the Bronx who used our returnship blueprint to convince her hospital to pay for child care. We send back what we have, PDFs, encouragement, mistakes to avoid. Spilled coffee, passed from hand to hand. We started a scholarship with my bonus the year the stock hit a high, for single parents finishing degrees they had to pause. We named it for my mother and Mariana's abuela. The first recipient brought her little girl to the ceremony and whispered through tears that someone finally believed the gap on her resume wasn't an absence but a chapter. I saw my old self in her, the posture that reads like pride because you're holding everything up with your shoulders. I went home and slept with my ring on, palm curled like I was cradling a warm cup. Not everything is tidy. A competitor tried to weaponize my marriage in a proxy fight, and it stung to watch a man with a lacquered grin imply that love dulls the edge required to run a company. We beat him with numbers and then with silence. The market understands performance. My people understand I define it more broadly now, quarterlies, yes, and also whether we can promise a new hire that a call from their kid's school won't cost them a promotion. And because life refuses to be symbolic on command, the only other time coffee truly transformed us wasn't cinematic. It was Lucia, late one night, panicked over an exam she'd overstudied into knots. I pulled a tiny cappuccino. Mariana sat on the kitchen floor with her, back against the cabinets, and told her about the test she failed and the one she aced and how both are fossils now. We all drank from the same cup. By morning, Lucia's score was a line on a page, not a verdict. She left a note on the counter, thanks for the rescue. Please buy more beans. Tonight, after dinner, we'll climb to the roof with blankets. The skyline will look as it always does, ambitious, a little vain, ours. Camila will point to a cloud that looks like a paintbrush. Mateo will declare it a dragon. Lucia will inform them both it's a cumulonimbus. Mariana will thread her arm through mine, and I'll rest my head on her shoulder, and for a long moment I'll listen to the city and to our family, the better music. If you need an ending, take this one. The coffee stain on my blouse never fully came out. In the right light it's a faint crescent, a watermark. I kept the blouse anyway. Sometimes I wear it to the office, to the meetings that matter. When someone notices, I smile. I don't explain. Who would have thought? I would have. Now.